Welcome to the Bariatric Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, mindset mentor, somatic coach, and transformational guide for those on the path to true healing. Whether you've had weight loss surgery or on GLP-1s or simply seeking a new way forward with food and your body, this space is for you. This podcast is a mission to change the narrative, unlearning the patterns that no longer serve you, moving beyond quick fixes into deep, embodied healing, lasting mindset shifts, and true self-leadership. We are healing from the roots, rewiring the mind, regulating the body, and returning home to ourselves. We are here for growth rooted in honesty and self-trust because that, my friends, is the foundation of healing. So grab your cup of joe or your H2O and let's go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Bariatric Mindset Success Podcast. And I am your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, and so excited that you guys are here with me once again today. I am so excited to get started on today's episode because everybody and their brother, mother, sister are all talking about food noise. And it is a topic that is fairly new. It has arisen recently as a result of the GLP-1 medications. And food noise isn't new. It's just new in terms of a concept. And it's been a way for people to describe their experiences regarding food. And I want to get to the bottom of what is it all about, right? So food noise. Everyone's talking about it, but what is it really? And why is it hijacking your brain? So I want to normalize food noise because we're all going to have it. The thing that I want to neutralize is the idea that you should be afraid of it. The idea that you need to control it, to be frustrated by it. It's something that we're going to have. The level in which you have it may be different, which is why GLP-1 medications are so popular. But in today's episode, I want to talk about that food noise isn't just about hunger. And I want to share some other thoughts and ideas about food noise so that we can get to some of the root causes because they're not all biological. And that's something that you're like, what do you eat? Right? So that's what I want to discuss in today's episode. So food noise isn't just about hunger. It's layered. It's biology, it's psychology. It could come from childhood programming or trauma, nervous system, regulation or dysregulation, really, and even ADHD or if you're neurodiverse, right? So by the end of this episode, I'm really hoping that our listeners, that all of you out there will understand where food noise comes from and start to I even want to provide some tips and tools on how you can start to train your brain differently and understand what's really happening under the surface and hopefully give you some peace of mind about food noise and to guide you to not be so afraid of it, right? Also, in today's show notes, I actually have a 4-part course. It's a free course called Food Noise Freedom, and I will be posting the link to that 4-part mini course that you can access for free. That was part of a gift that I had shared as part of the 2025 Bariatric Symposium, where I did a talk called Name It to Tame It. And it was specifically about food noise. So not everybody who is listening to the podcast may have joined the Bariatric Symposium, but I do want to give a plug. She'll be on the podcast probably within the next couple of months, to Kristen Willard over at Bariatric Meal Prep, who was so gracious and invited me to be a speaker at the 2025 Bariatric Symposium. So go ahead and check her out. She is a bariatric dietitian and has a lot of great resources on her site. So what is food noise? Defined simply, food noise are intrusive, repetitive thoughts about food that feel hard to ignore. The truth is, it's not always about hunger, right? It can be boredom, it could be stress, avoidance, unprocessed emotions. And another analogy that we could utilize to think of food noise is about a notification bell that, you know how sometimes you'll have notifications on your phone or on your computer. It's like a bell that keeps pinging, but the alert might not even be about food. It's just, it's getting your attention to let you know that something within your system, within your body, maybe even within your mind needs to be addressed. But we're thinking it's about food, but it may not be. And one of the things that I have talked about in my trainings and some of the even the food noise presentation that I made, and this may be in my course as well, is that science has shown, as an example, there are several studies that show the impact of stress on our bodies and sleep. And the two biggest predictors of weight regain are sleep, a lack of sleep, and stress. What does this have to do with food noise? What we know from the research is that when someone isn't getting adequate sleep, their body will tell them that they're hungry, right? So we see this 3 o'clock slump, and this is something I have talked about in my trainings. I have talked about publicly. I have talked about in my groups. And this is why sleep is so important, is that I can remember pulling an article a couple of years ago, and this one specific article said that an individual that wasn't bariatric, but just an individual who's not sleeping enough, who's not getting adequate rest, sleep, recovery, has the propensity to eat up to 400 more calories per day than an individual who has adequate sleep. The other one, stress and sleep, so not getting enough sleep signals to your body that you're hungry, and that is how your body communicates with you. You may not be physically hungry. It's a way that your body is saying, we need energy to move forth in the day. So this is a form of food noise, right? Is that your body is trying to have enough energy to stay awake. And it could be that moving is what's most useful at that time to wake yourself up, as an example. And yet, if you're at a desk job and you're tired and lethargic and you're thinking, I need a coffee, or I need some candy, or I need some munchies, it's a way that your body and your brain are trying to keep you awake, because that food would give you the energy, because that's what food is. It's meant to be nourishment and energy to guide us, wake us up, and go on with our day. I will say, and yes, I am going to call out highly palatable and processed foods. The foods that we eat today, the processed foods, the food products, they're not nourishing, right? They're high calorie and low nutrition. And we can see individuals who are obese, who are malnourished, because if there is a quote diet, I hate the word diet, but it's, if we think about it in terms of the way of eating, if someone's quote unquote diet is primarily highly palatable, highly processed foods, which also creates a lot of addictive tendencies in the brain, right? Then someone will be drawn to those foods, will likely struggle with getting the nourishment needed to fuel their bodies, right? So this is where this balance is needed, because if someone is just having the highly palatable foods and they're undernourished, right? Likewise, there are individuals who are only clean eating, right? This isn't a moral situation. We're not putting one better than the other. We need a balance. We really do. That's one of the things that we've got to start looking at, is, are these decisions and choices that we're making, how are we uneducated about the foods, the highly palatable foods, How are we uneducated about what food noise is? And that's why I'm here to educate you on this, to teach you about this, to help support you in making better decisions. And education alone isn't going to automatically change our mind to make new decisions. We have to decide for ourselves that this is something that we want to do for our health, for our wellness, for who we want to become in our lives, right? So all I'm doing here in this episode is providing you with as much information as possible about food noise and about what different parts of the research show so that you can make the best and most informed decision for yourself and hopefully shift your behaviors to support not only who you want to become, but the body you want to live in, to support your weight loss journey, to support your overall health, because these are some pieces of the puzzle that are missing that I am so passionate about that I want to share with you. So the other one is stress, right? So we've all heard about stress and our cortisol flooding and glucose flooding our system. And I'm sure that a lot of people have seen those commercials. Oh, cortisol is the reason that you're gaining weight, and cortisol. And yes, cortisol is a stress hormone. And when we are in states of high stress, a sympathetic state, fight, flight state, right? When we are in a high stress state and our adrenals pump out cortisol, and that is something that signals to the brain, we are going to run. We are being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Not really, but this is primal. This is primitive, right? But then again, so is eating. Hunger, physical hunger is physiological. And I'm going to get ahead of myself here, but I'll probably say this 3 or 4 times. And I want you to really, really hear it. Your hunger, your physical hunger is sacred. It is not weakness. It is not failure. It is not bad. Physiological hunger is primal. Your hunger is primal. And one of the things that I see frequently as a result of food noise is that, and all over the internet, all over, I see in Facebook groups, I see on Instagram, I'm not so much on TikTok. It's a bit of a rabbit hole for me, but I will see all these places. Oh my gosh, my hunger is back. Oh my gosh, right? So what do we know about hunger and what do we know about weight loss surgery is that after weight loss surgery, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of gastric sleeve or duodenal switch or, the balloon or the RNY, gastric bypass, right? You've had bariatric surgery, some form of bariatric surgery. What we know in the literature, and it's been said in previous episodes, is that it does in part reset your hunger hormones. It takes a while to get the hunger hormones back. So initially, after weight loss surgery, you may not feel hunger. You may not feel hunger. And then what people call head hunger is real. Head hunger. What is head hunger? It's what we also refer to as appetite. It's a desire to eat. It's a desire to have food as pleasure. It is times where you have a taste for something. You may have a craving for something. It's where you're wanting to eat, but you're not physically hungry. So head hunger is very much like appetite, although I'm very sure that there are distinctions. And one of the other pieces of this that, if you'll follow me on my own little ADHD rabbit hole here, is that hunger and appetite are 2 different things. Okay. And then I'm going to circle back to food noise. But I think this is important as we talk about food noise, because it's more than just our hunger is sacred, which it is. It's part of the human experience. Hunger connects us to survival, to growth, to community, sharing meals, breaking bread, right? So hunger and appetite are 2 different things. Okay. Hunger, physiological signal, primal need, fundamental to the human experience. Appetite is the desire to eat, even without physical hunger. It is triggered by our environment, seeing or smelling food, an emotional desire, boredom, stress, loneliness, joy, specific cravings like I want chips, not carrots, or I want something sweet. So appetite comes on quickly and it may pass if distracted. And I realize that may not be for everyone. True physical hunger shows up in the body, not in the mind. Now, here's another important thing that we're going to be addressing in today's episode that is huge, 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 huge. If you are neurodiverse, have some form of ADHD, if you have had a history of trauma, any type of trauma, or are someone who is chronically stressed, you may struggle with feeling physical hunger because you may have something called low interoception. It is not a diagnosis. It is not a disease. It means that you struggle with sensing and feeling inside your body. And those who have had some form of physical trauma, emotional trauma, sexual trauma, may struggle with being in their body because their body may not feel like a safe space. So this is where I say you might need some form of trauma therapy. And I also want to say here that EMDR as a therapeutic modality, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is great for psychological trauma and helping with reducing flashbacks. EMDR is not for removing trauma from the body. What is good for removing trauma from the body is somatic experiencing, or a form of somatic therapy that can help you release trauma from the body. Everybody's heard, oh, the body keeps score. Trauma is stored in the body. Right. Well, to release the trauma from the body, to start befriending the body, to start coming home to the body, you need a form of somatic therapy, somatic experiencing, releasing trauma from the body, which also helps for an individual to come back to the body. And it's not a force thing. It is a slow practice because we are not wanting to re-traumatize. This is very, very important. So if you are someone who has a history of trauma and who dissociates, that's the word, or has autopilot eating, which means the food is in your mouth and you're like, oh, how did I get here? It's basically dissociation is that you are not physically in your body while you're eating. You're autopilot eating, you're separate from your body, you go somewhere else as a way to self-soothe, and it's a form of escapism, it's a form of avoidance. I want to share with you guys that these are all like survival mechanisms. It's not that it's bad, you're not bad. And I think we need to normalize that what you've done, we may refer to it as self-sabotage, but what you've done is a way that your body has attempted to keep you safe mentally, emotionally, physiologically. And so we want to honor that that was a coping mechanism that your body used at one point in time, may still be using. And you may need to pivot and find new tools, make peace with your body and release this trauma in order to shift your patterns and to change your relationship with food. And I just want to honor that. So the thing that I say over and over to people is your nervous system is hardwired for fear, hardwired for protection, hardwired for survival. It is not hardwired for happiness. Okay, so when we experience these nervous system states like a fight flight, it is as a result of our environment, our experiences, what's showing up in our life. It could be that, and there's an example I use quite frequently, which is your boss says, hey, I need to see you in my office right now. And if you are someone who is insecure, doesn't have high confidence, or has a history of emotional abuse or low self-esteem, what will happen or what can happen automatically is your thoughts go to, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. So it could be that your boss, that person is in a bad mood. They're trying to get something resolved. They're frustrated with the situation, but you may interpret it as I'm the problem. I'm going to get canned or sacked or fired or something, or I'm going to get in trouble. And that may be your narrative or story. That may be your self-talk. That may be your inner critic. So essentially, nervous system, which governs our body, also it transmits information to our brain. So it is a bi-directional pathway. Our brain may think thoughts that are what we call automatic negative thoughts over and over as a result of what we call programming or conditioning. What does this have to do with food noise, Kristen? Absolutely everything. Because if you're constantly telling yourself, you're a failure and you can't stay away from chocolate or you can't stay away from sugar, your body responds to that messaging, right? So now if you have convinced yourself that chocolate, sugar, some kind of food is on a pedestal, it's exciting and stimulating for your brain, which I'm not discounting or dismissing the biological processes that may occur, dopamine, the endorphins, the excitement, or the stimulus that food provides. I'm not discounting that. I'm also saying that your thoughts don't help that. And so this isn't about shutting out your thoughts or punishing your thoughts. It's about noticing what you have on repeat all day long. Because we have, I don't know, somewhere around 100,000 plus thoughts a day, it's not about micromanaging your thoughts. It's about redirecting them. And then noticing what shows up in your body. But again, if you've had a history of trauma, if you've had a history of emotional abuse, physical abuse, I bring this up because you may not be comfortable in your body. You may be dissociating. You may be head in the clouds. And I can identify with this because I've talked about it in previous episodes. I've talked about it in my group. I've talked about it publicly. I've shared it in some of my reels on Instagram. I had a former mentor that constantly told me, get out of your head and into your body. Get out of your head and into your body. I essentially cut myself off from my body because my body was a scary place. There was so much discomfort in my body. And I'm not even talking about pain. I'm talking about I couldn't sit with the emotions. I couldn't sit with the discomfort, the shame, the blame, the guilt that I put on myself, that I experienced. I would have thoughts and also visuals replaying in my mind, almost like they were movies and they were shameful and they were horrible. They were self-punishing. And why this happens is because of the programming, essentially. And you're like, where is this programming coming from? Well, if you've been told your entire life, your body is a problem, you need to fix the problem. And then you start down the path of dieting, which is about deprivation and restriction. Follow me here. Then the only thing you're really thinking about is food because you've been told that your body is a problem or that you need to lose weight. And what you've been taught your whole life is to deprive and restrict. So you deprive and restrict to a point where you just can't anymore because, again, that the thing that we've been taught is that it's about willpower, it's about self-control. And so we didn't even know about food noise then. But is this really about food noise? In some instances, but when you deprive and restrict, your body is going to override with those hunger signals. So those physical hunger signals get louder because your body is saying, I need nourishment to live. So then why people get freaked out, and I did not even know this. So this is partially, yes, some things that I went through, but also to teach you and to help you to connect with your own body, with your own hunger, to help you to start to distinguish between hunger and appetite, to help you distinguish what is actual food noise versus your body telling you, hey, could you pay attention to me over here? I've got a bunch of stuff going on. So when you deprive and restrict, your body is going to get louder with physical hunger. And if you do have that appetite, your body and your brain is going to say, ooh, this is what I really want. This is what I really want. Well, if I'm going to have it, I might as well go for it. So then you have something, then you go through this process of shame, blame, and guilt. You may even call it emotional eating. Some people may call it binge eating. I know in a previous episode, I talked more about the distinguishing factors between binge eating disorder and what is disordered eating from an eating disorder. So you will definitely want to go back and look at that if that resonates. However, this process that you may be going through in terms of, okay, I'm restricting and, oh, I just can't handle it anymore. That might be physical hunger. Okay. And again, your hunger is biological. Appetite is psychological. So there are times where you can be hungry without an appetite, right? You can be like, okay, I know I need to eat something. Your body needs fuel, but your mind doesn't want food. That can happen, right? So stress, grief, and anxiety can shut down appetite in some people, whereas in others, it can activate appetite, right? So it depends on who you are. I remember prior to surgery, I was the type of person who stress, anxiety, happiness, it didn't matter. I ate. In all situations, I ate. Now I notice when I'm extremely stressed, anxiety and grief, stress will shut down my appetite. So this is where, and even my hunger, I won't even feel hunger. So this is where I have to pay attention to, I need to fuel myself. I need to nourish myself because my body does need nourishment. And this is something that I want you to check in with yourself. What kind of person are you? How does your body respond to hunger without appetite? Have you ever experienced hunger without appetite? Now, I'm also going to share here that I have worked with a lot of people who have had what we call scarcity or poverty in their childhood growing up. And this creates a fear of feeling empty, a fear of hunger, because it triggers, and it could be considered a trauma from childhood of feeling hungry, because that takes them back to a time and place where they don't want to go back to. And it may remind them that emptiness of not having food, not having sustenance and going without could be very triggering. So this is where you may need some process therapy, working with a therapist on these types of things, right? Similarly, we can have appetite without hunger, and we can be using appetite, the desire for food, right? So this is the reverse, wanting to eat when your body is not physically hungry. So this could be emotional eating, sadness, stress, boredom, social cues like birthday cake, popcorn at the movies, or what we call hedonic eating, which is for pleasure, not fuel. And appetite without hunger, I see it a lot. And then people confuse appetite with hunger, which is also where the, quote unquote, food noise, because if you are anxious and your body is signaling, I'm in danger, you may not be in danger, but you might be conditioned and programmed according to your life. We live in a very fast-paced world. It could be that you get a call about a parent or a child or a loved one, and there's some kind of emergency, right? It could be that you stop fast because you're trying to avoid getting hit at a traffic light, and your body goes into a state of fight flight, and your body reacts. Your body is trying to protect you. This is not abnormal. It's very normal. And it could be that then you go from one stressor to another stressor. You've got a big project due at work, or you've got to take care of something. You don't have enough time to take care of it. I can label and name 10, 20, 30 different situations that could apply to your life. And if you don't know how to regulate or come back to a state of calm, or come back to a state of what we call cool, calm, and collected without using food, if you do not know how to do that, you might be using food to calm yourself down, because food is one of the fastest ways to flip us over into what we call a rest and digest state, a cool, calm, collected, and connected state. So your brain might be telling you, ooh, that sounds good. Ooh, I want that. Oh, I've got to have lunch anyway. So you're not necessarily asking yourself, what's best for me right now? What's going to help me to be healthy? What's going to help me to achieve my goals? This isn't about size. This isn't about weight. But if you have a pattern of seeking out food for pleasure, which again, I will also say having food as pleasure is not a bad thing. Where it becomes problematic is when food becomes the central focus of your life. When food takes up a bigger part in your life than anything else, where food becomes not only the thing you look forward to, but it's the thing that you put your grief into, that you put your sadness into, that you move less and less and less because your body is in pain. Because, friends, I'm not sure if you know this, but sugar, the more sugar you have, the more sugar you want in the gut. Sugar begets sugar. Okay. Even if you're not a sugar addict, even if you're not someone who necessarily, quote unquote, craves sugar, the more sugar you have, the more sugar that you will want. This isn't about demonizing sugar. It's about really supporting you so that you know how these patterns show up in your body. And when you have more sugar in the gut is the second brain. Your gut, which is also the seat of your immune system, your gastrointestinal system. When I say your gut, I'm talking about your intestines, essentially, right? That's where our immune system is. 90 to 95% of our serotonin, our happy chemical, is made in the gut, not in your brain. If you have what we call dysbiosis, which is where you have more bad bacteria in your gut, more than good or healthy bacteria in your gut, it's just a amount of time before your body starts to create illness. And then what we know from a history of trauma, chronic stress, and inflammation, which, by the way, sugar is one of the key leading factors in inflammation, in joint pain. I can tell you, I have arthritis in my knees. If I have too much sugar, my knees go into so this isn't just about my body. This is about you paying attention to your body. So when you're cut off from your body, you don't do these things. You may not even know the domino effect of how food and nutrition is impacting your body and your brain. Not only is it, oh, I've had too much sugar, then you want more sugar, then you feel bad about having sugar. But guess what? It's also a contributing factor to depression and anxiety. And I'm sharing this because nobody's really talking about this. Not in the way that's educating people to understand how you're unintentionally eating and it's causing more problems. So what we also know, one of my favorite books that I teach on, talk on, is by Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No. He talks about the stress response. He talks about people pleasing, perfectionism, how it shows up in women, and how it's also linked to autoimmune disease, breast cancer, and a lot of other illnesses. So what we know from history of trauma, what we know from the chronic stress response is that people who've had history of chronic stress, in addition to, yes, are there factors of genetics and intergenerational trauma? Absolutely. But then what you feed yourself is also contributing to that gut bacteria, which also can quicken or slow down the process of illness. So if we want wellness, this is why we have to come back to whole foods. This isn't about demonizing foods, friends. This is about getting honest with ourselves about what's creating the cycle. Now, when we talk about food noise, the truth is that if you're on highly palatable, highly processed foods most of the time, that's what you're craving. And if you're seeking out pleasure and avoiding pain, which is psychology 101, by the way, we all want pleasure to avoid pain. What we may be doing is seeking out the foods because it's cheap, easy, and fast. And we're getting pleasure, which again, pleasure is not bad. Desire is not bad. It's understanding that if you're using foods for most of your pleasure, a way to avoid, a way to procrastinate, a way to get stimulus, a way to get excitement, a way to redirect your attention. Where it becomes problematic is it's not just the weight, it's the health factor. What is that doing to your body? And then if you're like, oh, I don't want to think about food, I just want it to go away. Or if you start this negotiation process in your brain, well, nobody's going to know, I'll just have one. So then you entertain the thoughts and then you go and eat the cookies and then you feel bad about having the cookies. So the truth is it's not even about the cookies. You got to get underneath what's showing up. Are you anxious because you're afraid that they're doing layoffs at your job? Are you freaking out because your kid is not doing well at school? Are you freaking out because you don't like flying and you know that you have a family member who's ill and you have to take a flight soon and it's terrifying you, right? There could be 100 different things that are going on in your life that, you know what, maybe I should just go eat this thing. That's how it shows up. So there's environmental food noise, which is you smell something, you see something on the counter. It takes away the pain of this moment. It redirects your attention on something pleasurable. Now, this is why I've also created this food noise freedom mini course, and it is free. So I'm going to share that link with you a little bit later. Also, this is why I had done this Name It to Tame It workshop for the Bariatric Symposium, because people are like, oh, I'll just take a GLP-1. Listen, some of you guys, yes, you need a GLP-1 to get to a point where you can work on this stuff. Some of you guys definitely need a GLP-1, okay? Some of you guys are dysregulated, which means you're highly anxious, you're separate from your body, you're disconnected from yourself. You may be in your head overthinking things, right? There may be a lot of childhood patterns. I'm going to give you another book that I want you to read, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. Is a fantastic book. I recommend it to almost all of my clients because it deals with a lot of the issues where you berate yourself, you judge yourself, perfectionism, people pleasing, self-judgment, self-criticism, likely started with you as a kid, right? So go read that book and then let me know what your thoughts are. So not everybody needs a GLP-1. Some people do. Some people are disconnected. Some people are full of anxiety. Some people are not taking care of themselves because guess what? You never learned to take care of yourself. You were taught likely to put other people first. You were likely taught that other people had more value than you did. So you're likely, some of you guys are going through a pattern of self-shaming, self-judging, and that doesn't get you anywhere, right? That leads to more problems, not less. And so this is where the education piece around not just food noise, but also around the tools that we're using are important to address. Is GLP-1 a tool? Is weight loss surgery a tool? They're both tools, right? And there are other tools. If you have ADHD, you might need an ADHD medicine. And guess what? You may also need coaching. If you've had a history of trauma, you may need specific trauma therapy. And you may also need some type of coaching so that you can be self-directed and know what your goals are and follow through on them, right? So somebody may need therapy and coaching. Somebody may need a GLP-1 weight loss surgery and coaching or therapy. We may need these things at different times, and it may not be all at once, right? So if you have depression, same kind of thing. You may need a depression medication, and then you may also need some therapeutic skills or techniques to move you ahead. So this is not about taking away any value from the GLP-1s, but what I want you guys to pay attention to are the people who are like, oh, well, I don't have food noise, so yay. I want you to be aware because if God forbid that GLP-1 goes away, you need the skills and the tools to reconnect with your body. You need the skills and the tools to come back to yourself to say, what's really going on here? Why am I seeking this out? What is it? Is it pleasure? Is it that I don't want to face my life circumstances? Is it that you're in a bad marriage and you don't want to admit it? Is it that you're in an emotionally abusive situation and you're not ready to face it? Is it that you're struggling? You feel stuck in your life or in your emotional state, or that you don't feel supported in your life? What else is happening? Is it that you have unfulfilled dreams? It doesn't matter if you're 35 or 65. A lot of people will say, I'm too old to change. You're not. You're programmed. And what the brain teaches us, and neuroplasticity is essentially what science tells us, is that our brain can change. Our brain is flexible. We can learn. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my clients who has had multiple brain injuries, and she has had a comeback like no other. And she's also 71. She is one of the most amazing people I have ever met. And I'm giving her a shout out here. She'll know who she is when she listens to this, because no matter what, she keeps trying. And there are times where she says, I don't want to try. I don't want to try anymore. And you know what? When she goes through her little frustrations with herself, and then she realizes, look at how far I've come. Friends, we all want it to be easy. But the thing is, we will not make it easy by avoiding stuff. We will not make it easy by avoiding what's showing up in your life. It's creating a symptom. Food noise is a symptom of some other underlying issue in your life. Now, can it be biological, like I said? Can it be the leptin and the ghrelin? Yes, it can. And that's where the medical community has created the GLP-1. But I'm telling you right now that GLP-1 isn't going to quiet your lack of fulfillment. That GLP-1 is not going to get you off the couch and move. That GLP-1 isn't going to bring you out of a depression. That GLP-1 is not going to take away that desire that you have to eat certain foods that remind you of your grandmother who may have been the only person that you think loved you, right? So these things that we've got to bring out. And you may say, oh, that's not me. That's not me. Great. That's not you. But there are some of you that are listening that I know, have these issues. You don't want to face them. It doesn't need to be with me. It could be with a therapist. It could be with a coach. We need education. That's part of my job, what I call psychoeducation. That's what this is. We need to learn about our bodies, to reconnect with our bodies, and to kind of settle the dust so we can decide. So each individual can decide what you want to do for you, how you are going to respond to the situations in your life. Everyone is going to have ups and downs, right? Nobody is guaranteed a smooth path. That is not what comes with this. But what does come with this process is that you learn how to be resilient and how to bounce back from difficulty. But food noise can come in as a way to distract you, as a way to redirect your attention to something more pleasurable. It can be a way to numb the pain, right? So essentially, food noise is coming as a way to help you to redirect your attention. But what you're not seeing is your pain. What you're not seeing is the stuff that has gone unaddressed that won't get healed by food. Food will not address your underlying pain. And if you're putting on weight because of your eating behaviors, you likely shame yourself for your eating behaviors. But guess what? What is driving the eating? What is driving the desire? What's driving that? If it's not your leptin and ghrelin, if it's not biological, it's likely psychological. It's likely sociological, right? Something going on in your life, something going on that you're not wanting to deal with that's underlying, or it's environmental, or it's habitual. If you've always eaten snacks at 9:00 while watching television, and then all of a sudden you decide you're not going to do that, guess what? That habit, that desire is still there because it's maybe something you've done for 20 years. So it's not about punishing or shutting out the noise by trying to dismiss it or shaming yourself for having it. It's by saying, hey, self, I've had, snacks at 9:00 for the last 20 years. It's not just that you've got to redirect your attention, but also start to validate and practice compassion. And I will tell you that in the bariatric community, y'all are not really good at compassion, and neither was I. So that is something to learn. So although this is all about food noise, we've also got to look at what generates the food noise. What generates it, right? It's your body. It's your brain. It's fear. It's anxiety. It's depression. It's a lack of sleep. It's a lack of self-care. It's seeking out pleasure. It's walking past a bakery. It's seeking connection. It's seeking love. So I want to honor that. And when you guys freak out, oh my gosh, my hunger is coming back, I want you to really look at and ask yourself and practice some inquiry. What is this really about? What is this hunger about? Can I be with it? And if you can't, guess what? You might need some extra work. Can I be with the hunger? Can I notice it? Is it actual physical hunger? What is going to nourish me? And if it's psychological hunger, where can I redirect my attention? What other tools and skills can I use to handle grief, to handle sadness, to handle disappointment, to handle anger, frustration, right? None of us get a free ride in this life away from these emotions. And if you don't know how to feel those feelings, then it's at least a starting point to know where you need to go. I need to learn this, or I want to learn this. I will also say, if you want to stay disconnected from your body, if you want to stay numb and avoiding, I have empathy. I really do. And I will just say that when you make that choice to do that, to avoid over and over and over, you end up hurting yourself because you stay in the same patterns over and over. So I'm going to conclude this episode by coming back and just giving you a couple more examples here. The sources of food noise, right? The biological brain wiring, which I talked about, circling back, the hunger versus appetite. We also want to address that brain, that frontal cortex, which is our executive functioning, which is what drives impulse control. So when we're dysregulated, if you have stress, ADHD, or fatigue, it feels harder to stop eating, right? So your ADHD brain, if you do have a diagnosis or think you might, your brain seeks novelty, stimulus, and food equals a quick dopamine hit, okay? So your nervous system, stress drives your fight flight state, or what we call a sympathetic state. Your body tries to flip you back into that rest and digest, which is also called the parasympathetic state. Food is the fast pass ticket. It's not the only ticket. You need to practice other skills, and that you can get in therapy. Those are the ones that I teach in my group. I also teach them in my courses. And it helps you to re-regulate, to come back to yourself, into that cool, calm, collected, and connected. Being stressed or dysregulated isn't bad. I want to say that it's a survival response. When it happens chronically, though, the problem is that if you don't know how to soothe yourself without food, then you're only using food, which can lead to, again, dis-ease, obesity, and so on and so forth. It can cause other problems in your body. When you're dissociated and disconnected, food is the thing that a lot of people turn to as an anchor. But where it becomes problematic is now you're creating a habit with food that's like, oh, that's my calm space. And what we need is other tools and techniques that help us come back to ourselves, come back to calm, and that we can utilize for healthy behavior change, right? So for emotional, psychological, food noise can be emotional static, right? So the root of emotional eating is usually discomfort or unprocessed feelings. If you don't know what you're feeling, food can sometimes be the translator, and you're like, oh, I must be hungry, but you're not, okay? So what we want to address and normalize is that when we are having food noise, it can be something else. So one of the suggestions that I'm going to say is label the food noise. What is it? Name it, label it, right? And others, some tools and techniques, grounding, movement, move your body, get out of your head and into your body, which means move around, maybe some breath work, put your hand over your heart, right? So find some other ways to get dopamine hits, right? Start to focus on learning how to practice being in your body, learn to notice hunger cues, fullness cues, and differentiate them from emotion. You may notice, oh, I'm stressed right now. Oh, my stomach is tight. My chest is tight, right? And notice these things. Most people who are emotional eaters, this was me way back when, they don't know what they're feeling. Emotional eating can be a response to unfelt or unprocessed emotions. So food noise can actually be your body saying, hey, over here, pay attention. There's something over here. So emotional literacy can literally reduce food noise more effectively than rules. This is not about food rules. This is about emotional literacy in a lot of ways. And yes, that does take time and practice. So here's our wrap-up takeaway. Food noise isn't just about food. It's about your brain, your body, and your emotions asking for your attention, asking for connection from you. The more you listen to your body, to even your thoughts. Notice what they're saying, right? Don't take them as truth. Don't take them as gospel necessarily. But the more that you listen, you learn to listen. The more you learn to listen differently to yourself, the quieter the noise becomes because you're checking in with yourself. So the next time food noise shows up, I want you to ask yourself, is this hunger? Is this appetite? Is this boredom? Is this emotion? And I want you to check in. Okay. So if you are not already a part of the Bariatric Mindset Mavens on Facebook, head on over there and join our free Facebook group. I am going to put the link in the show notes. I hope that this has given you some clarity that food noise is more than just biological. And I hope you access my food noise freedom 4-part series to get back in touch with yourself, to give you some other tools, and leave a comment, share this episode, because more people need to know that this is more than just the tools of medication and surgery. It's also reconnecting with ourselves, our psyche, our soul, our mind, our body, and treating ourselves like we would someone we love. Right? Because we are someone we love, even if we don't know it yet. So thank you for tuning in. I am Dr. Kristen Lloyd with Bariatric Mindset. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.